It began with silence on the map table, a long silence. Red and blue pins were frozen in place, but one thin arrow kept stretching forward, far beyond where it was supposed to stop. The room smelled of cigarette smoke and cold coffee. Supreme Allied Commander General Dwight D. Eisenhower stared at the map, then looked up slowly. His voice was calm, but tight. "That was not my order, General." The man he was speaking to was George Smith Patton, commander of the U.S. Third Army. And in just 36 hours, Patton had driven his forces nearly 150 kilometres across France, shattering German defences, ignoring planned pauses, and rewriting the Allied timetable. If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below. This was not a story of disobedience alone. It was a story of speed, pressure, ego, fear, and a war that could turn on a single decision made in the heat of motion. To understand how this moment happened, you have to go back to the summer of 1944, when the war in Western Europe was balanced on a knife edge. The Allied invasion of Normandy on 6 June 1944 had succeeded, but success did not mean victory. The beaches were secure, but the Allies were trapped in the Norman hedgerows, fighting yard by yard against experienced German divisions. The German army, though weakened, was still dangerous. Field Marshal Günther von Kluge commanded Army Group B, and despite heavy losses, German units fought stubbornly to contain the Allied breakout. For weeks after D-Day, progress was slow, costly, and frustrating. General Eisenhower knew the danger of moving too fast. The Allied supply system was fragile. Most supplies still came across the Normandy beaches. Ports like Cherbourg were damaged. Roads were narrow. Fuel was precious. Eisenhower believed in steady pressure, coordinated advances, and keeping the Allied front balanced. He was not a flashy commander. He was a coalition leader, managing Americans, British, Canadians, Free French, and more. His greatest skill was control. George Patton was the opposite. He believed war was won by speed, shock, and relentless attack. He believed hesitation killed more soldiers than boldness. Patton was a cavalryman at heart, even in an age of tanks. He wore polished boots, ivory-handled pistols, and spoke about ancient battles as if they happened yesterday. He had been sidelined earlier in the war after the Sicily slapping incidents in August 1943, when he struck hospitalized soldiers suffering from battle fatigue. Though officially reprimanded, he was kept in reserve because Eisenhower knew one thing: when the moment came for a breakout, Patton would be useful. That moment came in late July 1944. Operation Cobra, launched on 25 July near Saint-Lô, was designed to smash a hole in the German lines using massive air power. After initial confusion and friendly fire incidents, the American First Army under Lieutenant General Omar Bradley broke through. German defences collapsed faster than expected. This created an opportunity. Eisenhower activated Patton's Third Army on 1 August 1944. The leash was off, but not completely. Patton's orders were clear on paper: advance cautiously, protect the flanks, coordinate with neighbouring armies, and avoid outrunning supplies. The Third Army was to exploit the breakthrough, but remain within the broader Allied plan. Eisenhower wanted a controlled exploitation, not a wild charge. Patton saw something else. He saw open country, broken enemy units, and roads leading deep into France. He saw German formations retreating in confusion. He believed this was the moment to strike hard and fast, before the enemy could recover. Patton famously said that a good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan next week. In early August, he decided to act on that belief. On 2 August 1944, Patton's Third Army surged forward from the Avranches area, the gateway out of Normandy. This area, near the Couesnon River, had been the bottleneck of the Allied breakout. Once through, the countryside opened up. American armoured columns rolled forward, engines roaring, dust clouds rising behind them. Units like the 4th Armoured Division and the 6th Armoured Division pushed east and south with incredible speed. Patton drove his headquarters forward constantly. He hated staying still. He believed a commander should be close to the action, feeling the pace. His staff struggled to keep up. Radio messages came in faster than they could be logged. Fuel trucks raced forward day and night. Engineers repaired bridges under fire. Infantry rode on tanks, hanging on wherever they could. By 3rd August, Patton's forces had crossed into Brittany, heading toward towns like Rennes and Nantes. German resistance was light in many places. Entire units surrendered. Others fled. The German command was slow to react. Hitler was still obsessed with holding ground, issuing no retreat orders that made little sense in a collapsing situation. This paralysis gave Patton the freedom he thrived on. But with speed came risk. Patton's flanks were exposed. His supply lines stretched thin. Fuel consumption skyrocketed. The Third Army was burning through thousands of gallons of gasoline every hour. Eisenhower's staff grew nervous. Reports showed Patton advancing far beyond planned phase lines. The arrow on the map kept moving. On 4th August 1944, in just over 36 hours of sustained movement, elements of the Third Army had advanced close to 150 kilometres from their starting points. This was almost unheard of in the European theatre. Even German blitzkrieg advances earlier in the war rarely maintained that pace under contested conditions. Patton was doing it with mixed units, in a crowded battle space, with limited supplies. Eisenhower was informed of the situation at his headquarters, then located near Granville, before later moving closer to Paris. He was not angry at first. He was concerned. He understood the opportunity Patton was exploiting, but he also saw the danger. German forces could counterattack. The Allies could overextend. A fast advance that turned into a disaster could undo weeks of hard-won progress. Eisenhower ordered Patton to slow down and align with the overall plan. The message was clear. Consolidate gains, secure supply lines, wait for neighbouring armies to catch up. Patton did not stop. He adjusted, but he kept pushing. He believed the Germans were finished in that sector. He believed delay would give them time to form a new defensive line. He believed history would judge speed, not caution. This is where the tension peaked. When Eisenhower later confronted Patton about the advance, his words were simple and direct. "That was not my order, General." It was not a shouted accusation. It was worse. It was a statement of authority. Patton did not deny it. He did not apologize in the way Eisenhower expected. He explained. He argued that the enemy was broken, that the chance had to be taken. He pointed to captured towns, prisoners, and intact bridges. He argued that slowing down would cost more lives in the long run. Eisenhower listened. That was his strength. He did not command by temper. He commanded by balance. He knew Patton was right about one thing. The Germans were in serious trouble. But Eisenhower also knew Patton was often right for the wrong reasons, driven by instinct more than coordination. Behind the scenes, Eisenhower made a decision that defined the rest of the campaign. He did not relieve Patton. He did not issue a harsh punishment. Instead, he tightened control while still allowing momentum. It was a compromise only Eisenhower could manage. Patton would continue to advance, but within a framework Eisenhower could defend to Allied partners like Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, who already viewed Patton with suspicion. The results were dramatic. Patton's rapid advance contributed directly to the encirclement of German forces in what became known as the Falaise Pocket, later in August 1944. German 7th Army and 5th Panzer Army were nearly destroyed. Tens of thousands of German soldiers were killed, wounded, or captured. The road to Paris opened, but the risks Eisenhower feared were real. By mid-August, Patton's Third Army ran dangerously low on fuel. Tanks sat idle, not because of enemy fire, but because gas tanks were empty. The famous Red Ball Express was created to rush supplies forward, using thousands of trucks driving around the clock. Even so, logistics could not fully keep pace with Patton's appetite for speed. The confrontation between Eisenhower and Patton was not a single dramatic meeting. It was an ongoing struggle between control and momentum, caution and aggression. Eisenhower once wrote that Patton was his best weapon, but one that needed careful handling. Patton, for his part, believed Eisenhower lacked the killer instinct to finish the war faster. Yet history shows that both men were essential. Without Eisenhower's restraint, the Allied advance might have collapsed into chaos. Without Patton's drive, the Germans might have stabilized their lines and prolonged the war. The phrase, "That was not my order, General," became symbolic. It captured the tension of command in modern war. It showed that even in a vast industrial conflict, individual personalities still mattered. Decisions were not made by machines or plans alone, but by men under pressure, working with incomplete information, racing against time. Patton continued to advance through France, into Lorraine, and eventually toward Germany itself. He would later clash with Eisenhower again over strategy, especially during the fuel crisis and the debate over a single thrust versus a broad front. Eisenhower always chose the broad front. Patton always argued for the single thrust. Neither fully convinced the other. On 26 December 1944, during the Battle of the Bulge, Patton would again shock the world by pivoting his Third Army north to relieve Bastogne in record time. Once again, speed would save the day. Once again, Eisenhower would rely on Patton, even while managing him carefully. George Patton died in December 1945, not in battle, but in a car accident in Germany. Eisenhower would go on to become President of the United States. Their wartime relationship remained one of the most studied command partnerships in military history. The advance of 150 kilometers in 36 hours was not just a feat of arms. It was a test of leadership. It forced Eisenhower to decide how much freedom a subordinate should have. It forced Patton to test the limits of obedience. In war, orders matter. But so does judgment. The moment Eisenhower said, "That was not my order, General," he was not just correcting Patton. He was reminding everyone that victory required more than speed. It required balance. And yet, without that unauthorized dash across France, the war in the West might have looked very different. The German army was wounded, but not yet dead. Patton's gamble helped keep it off balance at a critical moment. That is why this story still matters. It is not about who was right or wrong. It is about how wars are really fought, not just with plans and maps, but with personalities, pressure, and the courage to act when the moment appears. In the end, Eisenhower's calm authority and Patton's relentless drive worked together, even when they clashed. One held the reins, the other pushed the horse to its limit. And between them, they helped bring the war in Europe to its end. If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below.